Well, this here is the all-new Audi A5, and if you are someone who believes in love at first sight, just like me, then of course you will simply fall in love with this car because it really does look very gorgeous in person. And today's review is going to be very biased and very positive and glowing in favor of the Audi A5. So if you are someone who does not like biased reviews, then maybe you should stop watching this review right here. But why am I saying it's going to be biased? Don't blame me for being a biased reviewer today. Blame Audi for making such a fantastic car. It's time for me to shut up now and allow the visuals to do the talking. Well, so let's start talking about the Dobbins and practicality bits inside the A5's cabin. And actually, you know what, just forget about the Dobbins because this is a really special car. Let's talk about the quality and be completely prepared to be blown away by the sheer quality levels inside the cabin of the A5. Yes, this car will simply wow you with its cabin quality. I simply cannot find any fault with the cabin in terms of the materials. And the cabin has been designed with someone who's really been at leisure designing it. He's got a lot of time to design because everything really does look nice. It really has very good legibility, and all the designs as well as the materials inside this car look very posh and very upmarket, just like an Audi is supposed to be. Well, talking about good design, you get Audi's virtual cockpit theme over here, which means that you can of course change the look of the gauges depending on what kind of mood you're in. You also get this huge screen over here, which of course is the point where you can see navigation, the stereo settings as well as other paraphernalia, and it is quite easy to operate. It is at par with BMW's iDrive in terms of operation. You also get Audi's Drive Select to change the characteristics of this car. And talking about changing characteristics, if you have more than one driver in your family who will be driving this car, then you can always find a nice and easy driving position because the steering wheel adjusts both for rake as well as for reach. And along with that, the seats can also be adjusted electrically, which means that getting behind this wheel and finding your comfortable driving position should be a very breezy affair. Well, so just like the Audi A4, you get this one huge big sweeping AC vent. Now the ones over here do not function, but they do really look cool and add a sense of personality to the car. And in terms of practicality, we have to talk about practicality because we are Autoportal. You get this huge tray over here, which is of course covered. You can keep your cell phone, wallet and other kind of stuff over here. You get these two big bottle holders over here ahead of the gear lever, and even the glove box is decent in terms of size. It's not the biggest one, but it is quite okay. And the Dobbins can actually house those big 1 litre bottles from your home. Well, in terms of equipment, you get a sunroof. You also get a fantastic Bang & Olufsen stereo system, and you really get all the bells and whistles. And if you want to check out the bells and whistles on this car, head to our website because we've given the link below over here, and figure them out for yourself by heading to our website. Well, if you are watching our video after a long time, let me just remind you that my height for reference is 5'10", and I always adjust the front seat for my height and my driving position. And headroom in the A5's back seat is pretty good for someone who is 5'10". Even if you're about 6 or maybe 6'1", headroom should be more than adequate. Now, in terms of overall seat support and seat comfort, the seats are very good. The support for the lower back is very good. The support for the undersides also is very good. The only issue is that there is a huge hump in the floor panel, so whoever sitting in the middle will just struggle for leg room. But that said, the footwells are quite wide enough to accommodate the feet of whoever sitting over here. So it is a decent place for 3 abreast, but 2 will really be quite good. But as a car which offers you good backseat comfort as well as backseat luxury, it is surprisingly good car because remember, the roofline at the back is sloping on the outside, and despite of that, Audi have managed to carve out lots of space for sheer headroom over here. So full marks to Audi for giving this car a genuinely good back seat. Well, to aid comfort even further, you also get your own AC vents at the back. And remember, this car comes with a 3-zone climate control system. You get 2 zones in the front and 1 for the rear occupants. And the throw of air from these vents is quite good, and it really does chill the cabin even in the 40-degree heat that we are shooting right now. Well, in terms of boot space, the A5 is just as impressive as its exterior design, and it's a nice and wide boot. There is a bit of a ledge over here, but it's not a big issue because it is a pretty deep boot. Also, Audi have given you these nets on both sides to keep your odds and ends in place, so that also helps quite a bit. And if you are someone who wants to increase the space even further, you can always drop the back seat down and you get a nice and flat loading area. And this car is genuinely good enough for those airport transfers, and it's also a good car to transport some of those big items when you are, of course, shifting homes. But if you are, of course, someone who can afford a car like this, you can always afford a big SUV moving around your stuff in the back. And before I forget, what's more is the fact that it is a powered tailgate, because it is an Audi and it is an expensive Audi, so you don't have to do things manually. Well, so here I am driving the new A5, and this car comes with a diesel engine. There's also an S5 version, but we'll talk about that later. Today we are driving, of course, the diesel at the moment, and it's a very familiar diesel engine. It's a 2-liter diesel engine which makes about 190 bhp, and this engine, of course, remember, is the same one which also does duty on the A4, and it's a fantastic engine in terms of refinement. Yes, it does not feel like a diesel, and I've said it before that, you know, this engine feels like a petrol engine and all that kind of things, but in the new A5 it just feels like stating the obvious again, and that is that this is the best engine on sale in the Audi range when it comes to overall refinement. And not only in the Audi range, in fact, it is the best engine at this price point. If you are in the market for a diesel engine and you want refinement and sheer refinement, then this is the engine to go for. Not only is it a refined motor, but it's also a motor which has a lot of power available in the mid-range. There's a lot of torque available in the mid-range. And when you're, of course, on the highway and doing speeds in excess of 100 kph, when you're doing 110 or 120, this car's stability is something to be felt, and also its fuel efficiency is something to be believed. Now, we have, of course, driven the Audi A4 before, and we have done a long test drive with it. You can, of course, check that car's video in the link below. But for the A5, this car's fuel efficiency is very similar. We have been checking out our onboard trip computer, and it's showing us figures in excess of 18 kpl, which is fantastic for the sheer size and weight that the A5 is of.
The Audi A5 comes with a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic gearbox, and it is one of the crispest as well as the wittiest units around. It is a sharp gearbox, which means that it simply changes gears at the slightest hint of the flappy pedals behind the steering wheel. There is absolutely no lag between the time you hit this pedal and the gear shift actually happens. This gearbox also aids the flexibility of this engine by a long way. So if you are doing highway speeds and are doing about 100 or 110 kph, the engine is spinning at a relatively low 1300, 1400 rpm, and in fact it feels like this car is simply idling even on the highway, making the cabin a very quiet place to be in.
Now, the A5 is a pretty good handler as well. You can always choose the drive select mode and choose the dynamic setting, which means that everything really becomes nice and tight and things become very tense around the chassis. And once you do that, the steering wheel seems to add a little more weight into it. The gearbox and the engine become a lot more alert to your inputs, and this car feels a lot more sporty than it already is. Now, in terms of overall agility, it is pretty good, and it is quick-witted. It does love to change lanes quite quickly. It's not got the sharpest steering wheel. The steering wheel offers you good feedback, and it is pretty accurate for most of the time. Now, if you are someone who drives a lot in the city and you are driving, say, maybe in Mumbai or Delhi, then you will, of course, have to negotiate a lot of your time around badly patched up roads. But I have good news for you if you decide to buy this car, and that good news is that this car, even at slow city speeds, is very good when it comes to dealing with those bumps and potholes and those rumble strips. Yes, this car will simply glide over them in the comfort setting over here on all those badly patched up roads, and you will not be feeling anything. Now, if you enjoy sitting in the back seat, then you will love this car, because first of all, the engine, the diesel engine on this car does not sound like a diesel. In fact, it sounds a lot more refined than a lot of petrol cars. And yes, I know that I have been going on and on and on about the refinement of this diesel engine, but you really have to feel it to believe it. Yes, I said that you have to feel it to believe the refinement levels of this motor, and that, along with the fact that you get a very pliant suspension, means that this car's back seat is really a nice place to be in. Now, Audi claims 0 to 100 in around 7 seconds for the A5, and that is completely believable. Well, so in summary, the A5 makes a strong as well as a stylish case for itself. It is a good all-rounder. It's got good luxury, it's got supreme refinement, and it's got good performance as well, not to mention very good fuel economy in this 2-litre diesel engine. And all I have to say is that the new A5 gets a strong A++ in my book. And if you think that you've heard that somewhere before, well, do let me know where you've heard it before in the comment section below. It's bye for now, and thanks for watching.